Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Unspeakable. Shameful. Uncomfortable. Unbelievable. Inexcusable. I introduce to you Catherine Lehane, the accidental advocate.
Thank you so much, Allison, and thank you all for having me today. I'm truly honored to be here. I know some of you out there know that I'm a leader for Make Pres Safe, and that's a movement to end decades of sexual misconduct at Presentation High School. I'm not here to try and convince anyone of anything in regard to that movement. I am here today to talk to you and share my story as an advocate for children's safety, and to discuss how you, as leaders in the community, can protect our young people from sexual abuse. So who am I? I'm not a mental health or legal professional. I'm a freelance writer and humorist. One of my favorite stories is a disgusting tale of trying to teach my son how to properly fart. I like to make people laugh. I like to make people think. By sharing difficult personal experiences, I like to help people know that they are not alone in this world. And that's exactly what I was doing when I wrote that op-ed for the Washington Post last fall, reaching out to other victims of sexual abuse. In high school, I was sexually abused by my Spanish teacher. Now, I was one of the lucky ones. He only touched me inappropriately. He only kissed my hand. He only showed me pornography. My best friend wasn't so lucky. He sexually assaulted her in one of the worst possible ways you can imagine. Despite my friend complaining 3 times to school officials, despite me spending 6 years after high school trying to get the administration to take action, they failed to contact the authorities as required by law, and our abuser was never held accountable. That Spanish teacher died not too long ago, and I wrote an essay about how his death gave me a sense of peace in knowing that he could never harm another child again. I also wrote about how sexual abuse survivors often need to find their own path because our legal system sometimes fails us. Of course, I was excited to be adding the Washington Post to my byline. You can bet I called my mom and sent her a copy of the newspaper. But more importantly, I was honored to be able to help my fellow survivors by sharing my story. And then the floodgates broke. Though I hadn't mentioned the name of the school or the Spanish teacher, people recognized them immediately. The article went viral over social media, and more victims of that same teacher came forward. A group of alums created a petition urging the school to conduct an independent investigation. The news spread so fast. I was dodging calls from the Mercury News, declining interviews from NBC, but ever the persistent journalists whom I love, they got their reports out without my comment. And then victims of other abusers came forward. Their stories were remarkably similar to mine. They had reported sexual abuse to school officials, but nothing more was done. The school never contacted the authorities. What I thought was an isolated incident decades ago exploded into an alarming, systematic failure to follow mandatory reporting laws. It spans almost 40 years. There are over 30 victims, over a dozen abusers. And there I was, the holder of all this information. So what was I going to do? I had written a piece about closure. I was ready to put a painful chapter of my life behind me, get started on my next writing project, but I couldn't turn my back on these victims, my fellow alums, and I couldn't turn my back on the current students. My high school instilled in me the motto, not words but deeds, and that hadn't changed. And thus, a movement was born. While other victims had talked to me, they were not comfortable going public. They were worried about their jobs, their families, their mental health, and I respect that. As a freelance writer, I had no job to lose. I have also been skewered in comment sections all over the internet, so I have a pretty thick skin. It put me in the perfect position to speak for those victims and advocate on their behalf. I partnered with another alum, Cheryl Hodgson Marshall. She had witnessed a sexual assault victim get intimidated by the administration into retracting her account. Because I had been threatened with a lawsuit back in the 90s, I also sought the advice of an attorney who specializes in child abuse cases. His job was basically to help me not get sued. We never wanted to go public. We repeatedly asked to meet with the board privately to share what we had learned and ask for an independent investigation. Repeatedly, we were denied. Instead, the administration and board both issued public statements denying my account and suggesting I had misinterpreted the Spanish teacher's actions. And that's what brought the movement to the public eye. We held a press conference to set the record straight. We thought the board would meet with us. Surely they'd investigate. Surely they'd take action. They didn't. So we escalated as necessary, including involving the media and meeting with Bishop McGraw a few times, who helped us. But why did we care so much? My abuser had died. None of our kids went to Prez. But see, it's not just about our kids. We care about all kids, everywhere. No child should be subjected to sexual abuse. Unfortunately, this type of abuse is all too common. We'll never know the full extent because many victims never come forward, but some reports put it as high as 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 6 boys are sexually abused before the age of 18. Last year, the World Health Organization declared sexual abuse a major global health problem.